Hey everybody, it's me, Nisi. Apologize, I restarted the live stream. My microphone was not on. I'm having one of those mornings, a Monday morning. Anyway, I'm back to do a reading. Thanks to you, Jamil. Shout out to you. Thank you for letting me know that you cannot hear me. I'm reading from Fiat People on Reset Wars, Taylor Durden. I'm trying to get through this. I'm at lunch. So we're just going to deep dive in. As you know, over the weekend, I read to you. I did an hour and a half reading, I think, over recapping the resets. So now we're going to pick back up and we're going to talk about the reset after Babel. Okay. So this is where we're going to pick up at. All right. So it says, after the Tower of Babel scattered the remnants throughout the realm, and Joshua led the Israelites on a campaign of restoration to expel the Canaanites from the promised land, which is Utah to California, the Canaanites were pushed back up to Canada into the lands of Japheth. Japheth was promised all the northern lands of the realm, but also said to dwell in the tents of Shem in Genesis 9. And do I have my Bible in here? Oh man, I don't think I have it over here. I was going to read it to you. Let's just keep going. So it says, Japheth means to enlarge. Japheth is one of the main hosts for the fallen to this day. All right. The area known as the Pacific Northwest was listed as parts unknown on maps. All right. For years. And was said to be the land of the giants. Now, as I said before, we're going to do a comparison over David Paulides' work. I'm going to share his book, and I'm going to show you information from newspaper articles and things like that from the 1800s, 1900s, and show you how many giant bones were dug up and taken by this institution. Now it's like they don't have any information on it. I'm just telling you, there's records out there if you go look it up, right? So the U.S. is over 2,000 mounds. We have the most pyramids anywhere in the world. Ground zero here. America's a true old world. Not going to argue with you. Got to do your research. Africa is that new made up dichotomy or the new narrative, the usurped history. See, like I said before, yesterday or the day before, they had to create these three religions to give you the false timeline that they put together. All right. And I mean, if you don't see it, you don't see it. I'm not trying to convince you or anything. Like I said, you got to go do your research. So what we have here is Japheth is squatting on the land here. Okay. And you've got a lot of people that have usurped our history. We're a loving and kind people. Yes, true enough. But we don't take accountability for our actions. And I'm talking about the melanated people here in the United States. I'm talking about, quote unquote, the Negro. Okay. The ones they want to reclassify as 6 times as African American, black, colored, and mulatto, which were originally the indigenous people of this land. Okay. We're the indigenous people of the whole realm. Okay. We've been scattered throughout the entire earth. And the only reason why, when you start to look at the stuff, you start to see the disobedience and you look at the lack of accountability, which is happening right now with us. Because everybody's all over the place. Like I told you, everything's upside down, reversed, backwards, and flipped. And people are running around here crazy. They don't know who the hell they are. They're confused. And it's all by design. See? So when you pull back and you go within yourself and you learn the kingdom of heaven is within you, and you start to fast, you start to do meditation, breath work, grounding, changing your diet, changing your water source, changing your environment, changing the people you hang around with, including family, then you start to see it for what it is. All right. So my point is, the Americas has over 2,000 mounds, and we have the most giants anywhere. All right. And the Pacific Northwest was ground zero. It was parts unknown. All right. So Japheth is epithets of the Greek folklore. Let me make sure I pronounce this right. Shabati or Vedic lore. Lepidus was considered a titan. He is the father of Prometheus, another father figure that brought fire and knowledge to humanity, like Lucifer. Again, we're talking about beings that were taught that this is mythology. They're not real. The Sumerian text is mythology, Greek mythology. That is all real. These were real individuals. Okay. They flipped everything and they have everybody completely fooled about what actually transpired. There are non-human biologicals here. They've always been here. They've been dealing with us since day one. And a lot of people have a hard time with this knowledge. People want to use the religious dichotomy and say angels, demons, whatever you want to call them, jinn, whatever. They're still extraterritorial beings from beyond the ice walls, which are more lands. Not going to argue. It says, He is the father of Prometheus, another figure that brought fire and knowledge to humanity like Lucifer. Mount Zepon was considered the holiest point to the Canaanites. In Isaiah 14, Lucifer seeks to ascend on Mount Zepon to usurp God. All right. Mount Zepon is Mount Olympus in Washington. All right. Washington State. Okay. And it says the original Mount Olympus. It is a lodestone communication point, just like the stone Bethel Jacob used to see Jacob's ladder. The tree of life in Genesis 28:11. Basically a place to get better reception from the connection with the magnetic center of the realm, the axis mundi, or the black rock, or Nigris Rupi, which is a real place. All right. It is a real place, and you can look at it on ancient maps. They've removed it on our maps here in 1018, 1020. Because I told you, it's really not 2026. Okay. They removed this. All right. You got to go do your research and go look it up. I find it fascinating. I like this kind of stuff, right? I'm a nerd. So it says Mount Zepon is Mount Olympus, Washington, the original Mount Olympus. It is a lodestone communication point, just like the stone Jacob used in the Jacob's ladder. The tree of life in Genesis 2 or 28:11. Basically a place to get better reception from the connection with the magnetic center of the realm, the axis mundi, or Rupes Negra. The Titans were the Japanites that crossbred with the Canaanites, whom were already part of the giant or Cain or fallen angel lineage. This is where you get the mixing of the bloodlines, right? You got to understand that. In lore, the Olympians overthrew the Titans and drove them out. That's the younger versus the older ones. Okay. There was a lot of fighting. I told you that. We've been fighting for a very, very long time. These factions have been warring for a long time, right? So they are banished to Tartarus. All right. And then it says, this is also mentioned in 2 Peter 2:4, where God cast the fallen angels into Tartarus. All right. And then it says, Tartarus is Tartaria. The tundras of Siberia and Northeast Asia are Tartarus. Yes, but Tartarian was worldwide too. He's saying after the fight and after the war, they moved into a specific place. What I'm telling you is the architecture was worldwide, and it was actually a worldwide civilization. Okay. So, Tartarus is Siberia and Northwest Asia. It's considered Tartarus. And this Japanite, Canaanite stock would take over the entire region in 11th and the 12th century. Okay. Now, this would be known as the Khan or the Canaanite takeover. They destroyed the Shang zone in the Shemitic Autonomous Zone in modern day China. So this is, again, you have the dark races in fighting. And then when you get the hybridization and the mixing of these different angelic lines or DNA from outside the ice wall, then you start to get the recessive or the lighter colors. Okay. So then it says, this should be just, okay. So it says, it's hard to read. The tundras of Siberia and Northwest Asia is Tartarus. The Japanese Canaanites stock would take over from the 11th to 12th century. This would be known as the Khan. They destroyed the Shang zone, which is the Shemitic Autonomous Zone in the modern day China. The Chinese today are Sinites. All right. Sin is the son of Cainite. That is why China is called China, Shina. All Chinese wars are called the Sino Wars. They are Sinites, a mix of Canaanite and Mongol or Magog or Mongol. And they eventually took over the Caucasus, which is where part of the Iberian kingdom, Eber, Hebrew, resided or reached Eastern Europe and down through India, where they formed the Mughal Empire, Mughal Empire. Okay. So again, you're dealing with these dark entities, these dark people. And then you start bringing in these different iterations, and then you start getting the lightening of the races. The one thing that I know is going to make people uncomfortable, where's your proof? You got to go do the research. I'm not trying to convince you or anything. I'm just simply telling you, when you start to put the puzzle pieces together, this makes sense. Why things are the way they are now. Okay. So Japheth's dominant stock took over the Middle East in the Mamluk, Mamluk takeover. Mamluks are Turkish Caucasus Japites, which is what we're dealing with right now in this land. Okay. With the Ish people, right? Turks are from Tubal, a son of Japheth, ironically named after Tubal-Cain. They ran the Edomites out of Arabia and took over the Isant and took over the Ismant, Egypt, and North Africa. Egypt is called Egypt because it is another way to spell Japheth, JPT or EGYPT or JPTH. All right. So, or Ptah, the new locations that we have on these maps today. I have a map over here on my wall. The new map that they have restructured today is all by design. And I think it's fascinating because you go back and you look at how it was before and how they changed it and they've updated. Like I told you, Ashmedai, is his name Ashmedai? Ashmedai was the original AI, and he was the one that helped Solomon build the temple, right? So we're dealing with that same group of people, different. Now you've got the lineages, the ancestry, the children of the children of the children, right? The bloodline families, still black nobility. I'm going to say it for the video, but you're dealing with a collective of a consortium of beings now. All right. And they know the history. They know the lineage. But the thing is, you don't know it. We don't know it, right? So that's why we're discussing this intelligently, all right? So my point is, it's ironically to see that all of this was dark-skinned people that started this stuff. Like I told you, I'm not race baiting anybody. I find it freaking fascinating that when you learn the truth, it's like, what are we doing here? Like, really, they're hoodwinking every single person, right? And a lot of people can't handle this information. So this is why when you deal with the overseas, you've got the Hindus who are actually North Ethiopians. Everybody's genealogy or their ancestry is going to be inverted because of all the mixing of the bloodlines. But you have to understand the basis of the foundation of how they did this, right? So when you talk about Egypt, you're talking about the land of Japheth over there. And this is how the B haplo group was brought into Asia, Europe, and Africa. Again, America is the foundation. Everything started here. They pushed everything out, you know? So I find it fascinating that, you know, when you start looking at all these different ancient maps and you start looking at the different people here, you can tell that, you know, these people were Hamites or these people were Shemites or these people were, you can see it in their bloodline. I mean, it's still there today. If you're looking at people online, you can tell if they're Shemitic or if they're Hamitic or if they're, you know, part of that dynasty. You can see it. It's not that far-fetched to see it. So it says that's how that group came over there, because they left America and then they went over there in Asia. That's the second place. Then Europe was third and Africa is the most recent. So everyone that's in Africa now migrated there, okay? Because it was initially staged for cryptids, humecluses, and hybrid things. It was not supposed to be anybody over there. Because if you look at the comparison now of the food, the animals, and the water, the springs, and the lack thereof, we had to ship food over there to them. And I have a great book on that by Alex Dunbar. We shared his video yesterday on Facebook. He's hardcore. He's got great information. He brings receipts. I highly recommend you follow him. You'll learn a lot from this gentleman, okay? But what I was saying is we fed the world. We did. And they're hiding all that. I just think it's fascinating. I mean, if you go out now and you go to the national parks, which I wouldn't recommend you do unless you pack in. If you go out to national parks, you'll see that there are berries, fruits, trees, things like that. We used to have way more of that. Every single city here in America and all across the known lands within this entire closed system, we had food for us. We had plenty of food for everyone. Everything was free. We didn't have to pay for it like we do now. As I'm telling you, the last reset, they really did us in the 1700s. They really changed a lot and they locked down a lot more control. You know, I'm not trying to get off topic. I'm just telling you, it's fascinating when you really put the puzzle pieces together and the light goes off and you're like, so that's what they did. That's why they did that shit. Now that's why things are the way they are now. It makes so much sense. So then it says, the process pushed the original inhabitants of Asia into the sub-Saharan Africa. All right. And it says the Khoisan people, and I put up pictures of the Khoisan on my Facebook so you can see them. I have a couple of cousins that I think they're Khoisan. I really do because of the way they look. But I'm just going to tell you, I put the pictures up so you can look at those people. All right. And were some of the first to vacate to East Asia in the 11th and 12th century. Then the Bantu ran out of Central Asia, India, and Iran. Okay. If you notice all the Indians, the Iranians, the Pakistanis, the Palestinians, they are dark like me and darker. Okay. There are still some dark skinned people there. But what you're seeing on TV is you're seeing the recessive or the lighter color. All right. You're seeing the mixing of the hybridization there and the colonialism. That's what you're seeing. But know that there are dark skinned people everywhere. We're everywhere because we're scattered. Because I told you, we did some stuff that we shouldn't have been doing. And we were very loving and peaceful people, but we also fought each other too. And this is the reason why we're not taking accountability for the shit that we're doing. We keep passing the buck and blaming it on the light-skinned people, the pale skins, the field melanated. It's not them. It's us. And I'm going to keep saying that until the day I close my eyes. It's us. We the problem. We the one that did this shit. Okay? We had help. All right. So then it says the Bantu people don't arrive until around the 15th century after the full reset of 1476. Again, I have a whiteboard and I may do a PowerPoint presentation so I can show you the months, the calendar and the year and how they inverted everything. Because I think it's fascinating. Because like I said, they added 1,000 years. And then they tell you the Ish people, I'm not going to say it on here. The Ish people tell you what they did. If you just read it, you're going to be like, wow, they really did that. But a lot of people are missing it. And, when you go into these institutions to pay for money for classes in university, you're taking those courses assigned to what you are going to get or pursue your degree in. So if you don't have a degree in this stuff, you're not going to see it unless you just a nerd like me and you just want to read and you start finding out stuff, or you just have a knack for doing that type of stuff, right? You're not going to see it, right? And automatically you're thinking when you go into these institutions, you're paying high quality money, especially Yale and Harvard, you're going to get the best education you possibly can. You're going to get the best education you possibly can because they created that program for you, the curriculum for you to keep you dumbed down and keep you a slave and a worker bee. But there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to be that way, it's fine. I'm that way. But I'm just telling you, it's fascinating to me. I just think it's fucking fascinating. I'm sorry, I'm a nerd. It's fascinating. So when you say 1476, you're really saying 476. All right. They just added 1,000 years. Like right now, it's not 2026. It's 1018 to 1020. I mean, it's fine. It's crazy that they did this shit though. So it says, there were the Hamite kingdoms in North Africa and the Horn of Africa, but both sub-Saharan Africa were mostly a reserve for animals, cryptids, chimeras, and homunculuses. And I'll put pictures up of those things. Okay. All the things you see like on the movies that they have that you say it's sci-fi, the creature with one eye and all that. That's really a real thing. Those are real beings. Okay. And they actually do exist. I just think it's fascinating. But they've been here the whole time and they've been watching us the whole time. And this is why a lot of people come up missing. All right. And this is why you have to understand when you go in certain places, you really got to have your head on the swivel. And you have to understand that we're dealing with entities that are not us. They look like us, but they're not us. Okay. And the Quran talks about it. I have the Quran over here. I have all the religious, all the books I have all of them. And I'm telling you that they tell you this, but people just completely they gloss over it and they miss it. You have to understand that this place is so much more bigger than what you can imagine. And there's so much more stuff that's going on here. The focus always should be that you need to reconnect with yourself, your higher self, and the kingdom of heaven, which is within you. Because once you do that, all this other stuff ain't going to matter. I mean, it's going to still continue, but you'll see it in a different light. You'll get a different perspective on it. And then hopefully you can ascend and get out of here because you don't want to keep incarnating, because each time you incarnate, the control mechanisms get worse here in this realm. And then it becomes to a point to where you have to relearn the information. If I incarnate again, I don't want to have to relearn everything that I want to come in knowing straight off the bat. All right, these are my past lives. This is what I did here. This was my family over here. I got to get this done because I got to get the hell up out of here. That's the way I want to come back if I have to come back. But I don't want to come back. It's a trap though. Okay. We're going to get into that when we start studying the Meta-Netters and the lost teachings of Atlantis, because I want to show you some stuff that I thought was interesting. And then I'm going to get y'all perspective because I don't know shit. I just read. I'm just putting the shit together, but it's fascinating to me. It really, really is. So when we talk about these other beings, you got to understand that's why Africa's the way it is. Okay. So, and those people over there, some of them are not even real human. I'm just telling you, they're in governments. You're dealing with stuff that you got to put the whole armor of God on because you don't know what the hell is going on. I'm just telling you. And you got to protect yourself. You got to know the information. You got to utilize it. You got to put in your wheelhouse of knowledge and you got to protect yourself from that. Right. So it says, all of the Africa was a reserve in that respect, but people encroached into those lands because they were fighting now. They were trying to get away. They encroached into lands that weren't theirs and caused a chain reaction of displacement that brought about people in Africa. After all the resets, the meltdowns and the invasions, the fighting, the raping, the pillaging, right? All that stuff, right? People ran deeper into Africa for shelter or they assimilated with the mutants. And this is why you have the different bloodlines. All right. Because they did have sex with these mutants. I'm telling you. It is also worth mentioning that the original Jepites were dark skinned. Okay. They were. Yeah. But the subsequent crossbreeding with the angelic stock, all right, those from beyond the ice walls, the extraterritorials, what they're testifying in Congress now, they keep changing the names. They keep confusing everybody. Now they're calling them non-human biologicals. Who comes up with these names? I'm just telling you, they're beings, but they don't look like you and I. All right. They shapeshift. Some of them do. So that's what they're calling them now, not to get confused. So the original Jepites were dark skinned, but the subsequent crossbreeding with angelic stock changed their appearances. Also important to recognize that Canaan had 11 sons. All right. This is where it is. And many people that look nothing like him today are still Canaanites. And the Canaanites would be your Native Americans. Okay. I'm just telling you. So by this point, Rome or Edom, they're still dark-skinned people now. These are not light-skinned or white people. We're talking about dark-skinned people, all right? They're falling, okay? So they're fighting and they're falling, and there are constant raids coming from mutants and clone hordes, just like the War of the Worlds, Warcraft on Prime. It's a free movie. Go check it out. It's a really good movie. It's a sci-fi, but it just talks about how these things come through this portal or gate, and they start warring with these kingdoms. Same concept. All right. They're just showing you in movies what they already did. All right. So it says internal strife within Rome was breaking apart. Eventually, Cheatham, a son of Japheth, would take over Rome. And there was a major crossbreeding phase between Edom and Cheatham. Edom, which is Rome, and Cheatham. So how Europe is beginning to look more pale, more West Asian, blue eyes, red and blonde hair come from West Asia. Europe was mostly brown continent for 600 years. I see in books that I have, they call them ruddy, they call them swarthy, some call them black, copper colored. It's all the same. My complexion and darker. All right. And then it says Europe was mostly ruddy continent for 600 years. Edom was ruddy or brown, like a red heifer or a calf. This is the same complexion that David described as being in Samuel 16 and 17. Go get your Bibles and look it up. The history of Europe is inverted. The people to first inhabit Europe were brown-skinned peoples from America. All right. That's the third continent. We talked about Africa. Now we're talking about Europe. All right. The Scots or Scots, Skotos, means dark. Okay. Were brown and from Acadia, the northeast part of America. All right. They migrated from Ireland into the mainland of Europe and established Iberia, which is spelled like 3 different ways. These guys spelled here: Iberia, Eberia, and Hebria. The Babylonians spoke Akkadian, and Cajun means Acadian. All right. So the Cajun people, right? Acadia was the region from Nova Scotia all the way up and all the way down through Louisiana. All right. This is why the Mi'kmaq language of the Algonquins of Acadia is similar to the Egyptians, which is the Meter-Neter. We're going to get into that. All right. That was the original Babylon, which became Greece and Rome. Okay. And Jasher, which we're going to read, chapter 27 through 1 through 8, Esau, who was at the age of 16, kills Nimrod, the king of Babylon. All right. And I told y'all over the weekend, if you haven't seen that video, because you know I get in here and do these long videos because I love to just talk about the stuff. They found Nimrod's body. And I was going to tell you something. Hillary Clinton, they busted her ass. They released it on the Wiki Files or something, WikiLeaks or something. And then it wasn't, I don't know if it was on Epstein. It was before Epstein's files were released, right? Because Epstein's recent. The WikiLeaks, they busted her ass because she was on, she took her computer home or something, and they found documents that she shouldn't have had on her computer. And she was talking about the body of Nimrod and what they were going to do with it. All right. So I'm just telling you, this is a real thing. They really did find the body, and they took the DNA from him. And of course, I told you they have the capability to bring these people back. All right. They have the capability of transferring consciousness into another vessel. All right. That's old technology, y'all. We're just now getting into it. And people think, oh, Nisi, this is sci-fi, it's too far fetched. No, it's not, baby. The stuff you see on TV and the movies, they done had that stuff. Okay. They're just trying to slowly bring it out because they have to take us slow, right? Some of us. I'm just like full throttle, bring it, release it. I mean, because I already know it's real. So they found his body. I just want you to know that. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why we went to war with Saddam in Iraq, right? Because I told you Saddam was Nebuchadnezzar reincarnated. That's what he said. I don't know if that's true. I'm just telling you, it's not far fetched. It really is not. If all the shit we know now that they were saying, I was talking about 5-6 years ago, and people were like, you crazy, you this and that. Now ain't nobody saying shit because it's like, it's true. I'm just telling you. So my point is, Hillary Clinton is in on this shit. All right. So what did you say? Hey, Udina. Hi, I can't. Hey, Radina. Speaking facts. Yeah. It's funny. It's just crazy. I just find it fascinating because it's like we're getting so desensitized to it. People are not, like my son said, Mom, nobody's got time to talk about aliens, extraterrestrials. We're trying to pay a mortgage. We're trying to pay bills, trying to put food on the table. I'm trying to do this, that, and the other. I get it. But the problem is, all this is a distraction, and they got us running around doing shit that doesn't even matter, because when they hit the button and we do another reset, we're all going to be gone and you're going to start all over again. So you might as well learn the information, true it up, and pull it out of your DNA, because it's already within you anyway, right? Because your ancestors, you carry at least 15 generations of beings within you. So this information is already in you. I'm just sparking a match or lighting a match or a fuse for you to go like, oh, okay. Hopefully it'll trigger you to want to research it, right? And I mean, at the end of the day, if people aren't interested in this, that's fine. It's only a few of us that's really going to get this shit. And it's only a few of us that's going to escape this place. Because I'm going to tell you, narrow is the way, narrow is the gate, and few will find it. That is in scripture. And the reason why it's narrow is because it's within you. See, while we're focusing outwardly, you need to be focusing inwardly. It's great to learn this information and to put it into practicality and understand it. But what are you going to do with it once you learn it? You got to put it into practice. You got to understand that this is the beginning of your awakening, and you've got to press forward and keep going, because this is actually just the tip of the iceberg, right? We haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet. We really haven't. So it says here, it says that Esau was 16 when he killed Nimrod, and who was 215 years old at the time. Okay, he was 215 years old. I posted a picture of him. In his coffin when they found it. It was a while ago. I posted it, but you can go out there and see it. You can research it. You can Google it. So it says the king of Babylon was 215 years old at the time, and Esau takes some special skins from Nimrod that allowed him to control anima. Okay, and Esau then has to flee and is exhausted by his process, and thus returns home and sells his birthright to Jacob for cheap just to get by. All right. Then Jacob's mother, Rebecca, convinces Jacob to take the skins and use them to trick Isaac and Jacob, Esau's father, all right, into giving Jacob his blessing. This lets us know there was some serious corruption in the bloodline as well as Jacob goes to start with the tribes of Israel. Two things only got worse from there. So yeah, they only got worse from there, but you can see how, again, we're not talking about the light-skinned people here. We're talking about melanated people doing stupid shit. That's what we're talking about. Okay. I don't want to get off topic. I'm just saying Negroes doing stuff they shouldn't have been doing. Okay. That's all I'm going to say. They're just doing stuff they shouldn't have been doing. So Judah, so then it says, let's go back. So then it says, he tricked him into giving him this blessing. This lets us know that there was a serious corruption in the bloodline as Jacob, as well as the start of the tribes of Israel. So things only got worse from there. And it says, Judah sells Joseph into slavery. King David gets a man's wife pregnant. Y'all know the story on that, right? And has the man killed. And King David's son tries to kill King David. Solomon employs demons and has hundreds of concubines and wives. So everybody's doing crap they shouldn't have been doing. That's what I'm telling you. Like now, like right now, it's still happening to this day. Everybody is doing shit that they should not be doing. This is why this world is the way it is. I think it's fascinating. So it says, Esau, which is Jacob's brother, is forced into taking his birthright and taking over as much as possible in general. Esau takes over Babylon, and then he takes over Greece, which is here in America. All right. And then it says Greece was Georgia. Okay. If y'all didn't know, it is. And then Tennessee all the way up through the North Sea into Philadelphia to Massachusetts region. Look at the King Philip's War in 1675. It says, the chiefs of the region of Massachusetts all had Greek names. When they lost the war to the brown-skinned British Edomites that were here, right? They were sold into slavery, just like the Virginia Indians, among others, throughout the region. Slavery was not from Africa. I'm going to say it one more time. Slavery was not from Africa. It was from within the Americas. Okay. It was here first. We did this shit first. Just gonna tell you, we did it. This is the oldest touch point here in the realm. This is it. So it says, people were enslaved in South America and shipped north and vice versa. Many people associate the original Creek Indians, all right, with the original Greeks with a G. The Creeks are the Greeks, all right. Many people do. But more than that, the Cherokee alphabet is Greek, okay? And I tell you, when you start to look at this stuff, they changed the names. Cherokee is what they named us, but we're actually called Anahuia. We didn't call ourselves that. Okay. So I have that in my genealogy. I have paperwork on that shit. Genealogy. I'm telling you, that's why you need to do your stuff, because we're not black. We're not African. We are actually the actual indigenous people of this land. And I think it's freaking fascinating. It really is. Once you know and you realize, you're like, these motherfuckers did all this shit. It just makes you laugh when you see it. It's like a light goes off in your head. So anyway, it says the Cherokee alphabet is Greek and their language is Greek until they converted to the Mohawk language. All right. There is a Greek DNA within the Cherokees to this day, and there are Greek crosses, dresses, boats, and cultures, as well as artifacts like the Possum Creek stone, the Metcalf stone, the Thrushton stone, the Redbird petroglyphs, and the Minoan script, etc. The original Parthenon is the one in Nashville. Go pull it up on your phone and go look at it. I'm telling you, we had a bunch of stuff that was out here in the Americas, and they, through the course of the mud floods, through the course of the plasma strikes, through the resets, and through them burning all these buildings and blowing them up, right? We've had a lot of beautiful things here in America. America was just like when you go over there and you see the Kailash temple in India. We had stuff over here just like that too, but they blew it up. I'm just telling you, it's fascinating that you can see more of the remnants around the world. That's why they always pushing you to go to India, push you to go to Egypt, go look at these, pyramids here. But we had the most stuff here, but they blew up everything. I mean, if you take a drive through Utah or Colorado and up through those areas like Devil's Mountain, Utah, or Wyoming, wherever the heck, because I took a picture in front of that thing. It's beautiful. The trees are beautiful, but you got to look, because we've had so many resets and because of the timeline, it goes further back in time. They want to make you think it's been 1 billion years or 1,000 years, whatever. It has been 1,000 years, but I would say from what I understand, it's been anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million years. 500,000 easy, right? But because of the timeline and because of the different races that came here, they started blending everything together. And the people that know the truth are the ones at the very top that we will never see, we'll never meet. The Vatican has all this stuff in the archives underground. It's all underground. I mean, the history is still there. They haven't erased everything, but it takes a lot more information for you to go dig and put the things together. But when people do that, I just find it fascinating, because some of us can get it. Some of us can retain this information and know it and understand it, right? So when we go back to this part, when we talk about Esau and his, taking back his birthright and taking over as much as possible, then we talk about, the King Philip Wars, and then the regions like Philadelphia, Massachusetts, and everything like that. It talks about the Virginia Indians and among others throughout the realm. Slavery was not from Africa. It was here from within America. All right. And so it says that, like I was telling you, the original Parthenon is in Nashville, and I saw a picture of it online a couple of days ago. but they try to make it seem like they put it up and they built it, it's more recent, but it's not, because you can look at the cement, you can look at how it was, the architecture of it, to tell that it was the original Parthenon. Okay. So it says it is claimed that the Parthenon in Nashville was a temporary structure for the World's Fair in 1897, yet it was fireproof, made of permanent materials, and stands to this day. City Hall in Philadelphia cannot be replicated, and obviously an old world building, along with train station and old Philadelphia prison. Many old world buildings. This is what I find fascinating. This is my love. Okay. Because I went into school to major in photography and art, and I started looking at all these different buildings. They're beautiful. Absolutely. The structure of these buildings is magnificent. We cannot build these things today. It's beautiful. But it says they repurposed and obfuscated the real history. Edom took the entire region over, and the original Rome is in Rome, Maryland. Go look it up. Rome, Maryland. That's the original Rome. All right. And it says, this is the Edomite Central. This is why the Potomac River means river in Greek in DC. And it was a major hub for the Doeg Indians. Okay. And the Doeg was mentioned before as the Edomite name. Dog also means Duke or Edom, since losing their birthright to Jacob, were never truly kings, but they ran autonomous dukedoms around the world. And you want to look up Genesis 36:15 and 36:43. And let's not forget that in New Jersey is called New Caesarea, which is part of Rome. Okay. So when you start to look at the ancient maps, you start to lay in all these different places. Every single continent and every single city outside the US, they replicated that from here. They took what was here and they pushed it out. And I find that fascinating. It's like kind of no brainer. When you look at it, you go, oh, okay, I see what they did now. But it wasn't there. These beings don't have any imagination. I'm telling you, we are wonderfully and fearfully created. And this is why they have to work so hard to do what they've done, to poison us, keep us dumbed down, toxins, chemicals, the happy sauce injections, the lies, the programming, all this, the frequencies, they're working overtime to keep us where we are. But the thing is, this planet of existence is going through a change, and we're waking up. So they can't prevent it. So what's going to happen is they're going to get to a point where they're going to flip the switch again. Okay. They always do this with the other civilizations. They were much further along and advanced than we are. But here we are thinking we're the ones that are advanced. We're at the lowest level that we've been. And that's why I find it fascinating that most people don't figure that part of it out. Right. So it says, so that's the part of New Caesarea, which is New Jersey. Okay. And it says, so he had essentially taken over the Midwest and the East Coast of the modern day USA by taking over Greece and Nimrod's Babylon, which stretched into Canada from Midwest. So we're talking about where my family's from, the Virginias, the Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan area. Okay. That was Babylon there. Okay. America's initial Babylon. And that was Nimrod's place. That was his portion of the area. Right. So it says Esau developed this multinational, multi-tribal confederacy to forcefully unseat Jacob and his descendants from the leadership role. Okay. Again, we're still talking about dark-skinned people. We're not talking about the light-skinned people here. These are Negroes. I'm going to say that for the video. These are dark-skinned people that are fighting. All right. So it says this confederacy is known as the Oyo Empire or the Yoruba Empire. And it says Yoruba is Europe or Europa. Okay. And is again, Edom established Rome, which was most of Europe. So from here over there, they take the bullshit. All right. So again, America first, Asia second, Europe third, and Africa's the fourth. It's the youngest place. Okay. So then it says Europe is Yoruba. And again, Edom established Rome, which was most of Europe, and the Phoenicia, which is a Canaanite goddess, and Esau's first wives were Canaanite women. Okay. The Haitian, Yoruba, Phoenix, I hear that thunder, and Phoenix buttons were found as far as Alaska, showing the ultimate reach of the coalition. The so-called Native Americans are mostly Canaanites or Canaanite mixes, okay? So they have a common interest in unseating the tribes of Jacob, which they're doing right now. And I will say this because I've got a few minutes left of my lunch. I'm going to try to get to a point so we can stop. If you notice, when you look at these Native American tribes right now, they're all fair-skinned or pale, melanated people. And it's because they've usurped the seats. They've taken over based on what I'm reading from you here. And so they're gatekeeping everything. Like they know who we are. These people know who we are. They're playing games with us. That's what I'm telling you. Then there's no point of us being online arguing with these people because they're going to think they're going to die believing a lie and they're going to defend the lie. What's important for you to understand is you understand who you are and what you encompass on the inside, right? Because we're all children of the Most High, right? But when it comes down to these lineages and these birthrights, this is why they have us say we're Black, we're African American, because they're removing us from our land, okay? So that we don't reclaim our birthright. That's the most important thing you have to take away from this. The genealogy is important, okay? Like one of my sons, well, Mom, everybody's mixed, da, 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 da. I'm like, I don't care to hear that shit. I have papers, I have documents that will hold up in court, all right? So the point is if you're serious about this, then you really need to get serious with it. It's not enough for you to say, okay, I know the information. If you want your land and your birthright and have your quote unquote 40 acres in the mill, it's there. They're sitting on that shit. They're squatting on our land. And it takes, several people to say something about it, but the majority of my quote unquote melanated brothers and sisters, they own some bullshit. They own this financial Black stuff. They own this African American stuff. They own the boule. They own the sororities, the fraternities. That's not going to help you. Those are the very same people that are keeping us oppressed at this point. And the majority of people who went through the educational system can't even see that shit. Like they're so far gone. Like I told you, they have to update their operating system. They have to update their programming. Someone who has less education would be better off. Yeah, be better off trying to do this stuff than someone who's got 20 degrees. Because it's going to be hard for them to let go of what they've learned, right? Because they attach their identity to that. And so when they attach their identity to that, when they come to question that, then they're all over the place. Those are the ones that will flip out and go in and shoot up a place and kill themselves and kill their family. They'll be that annihilator. I'm just telling you, they're so far gone. And I think it's fascinating, but it's very disconcerting when you know the truth and you try to tell people that stuff and they're like looking at you like you're crazy. But again, I'm only sharing this information with a few of y'all. Only a few of y'all are going to get this. The majority of people are not even going to watch this video. They're not going to even understand it, right? So let's get to this last part because I'm going to jump off here. So a lot of the common interest is unseating the tribes of Jacob. They weren't alone. Other Shemites like the Anamites and the Moabites, I'm telling you, it's a bunch of Negroes that's doing this stuff, who were both inbred from the start, also wanted to change the status quo. Many Moors, who are Moabites, all right, let's get this straight now. Everywhere this confederacy took over, they crossbred with the host populations and used the offspring as a subclass to rule through. So this is how you got the Black nobility behind the scenes with the gray and black pope. With the white pope you see now, they are the front office people because it was Negroes that was doing this shit. All right. And they've done this brilliantly. They put this plan into play. And you got to understand, they also had slept with other things, the jinn, the fallen bloodline, the inorganic ones. People want to call them angels, demons, whatever. They slept with those things too now. So you got the inbreeding of that, plus the inbreeding of the people, the tribes that are fighting, right? So you got a lot of shit going on. That's why this place is the way it is. Okay. So it says everywhere this confederacy took over and crossbred with the host populations. I told you in Claudio's work, they come in, they take the children that are 6 months or less, they unalive everybody else. They may keep a few choice stock young girls until they hit puberty to start having children and raping them and creating a breeding factory. They're still doing this shit to this day. The U.S. military is heavily involved in this stuff. And it's not a conspiracy. You just got to go do your research. I'm telling you, they're still doing the same shit today. This is why we have a lot of people that go missing. Okay. I'm just telling you. And so when they do this, this is what they do when they go to war. They destroy everything. And then they rape the men. They rape the little boys, the girls. They save the girls for procreation. And the boys are used for satisfaction or fantasy or whatever. I'm just telling you, they do this. So, I mean, it's hard to hear, but we're adults and we're putting our big girl and big boy pants on to learn something. All right. So it says, so they had the offspring to do like a subclass to rule. So each faction also had their servant class, which was the pale skins, the light skinned, my melanated brothers and sisters, versions, which grew up as more lands were taken over and more ground had been subdued and policed. The Oro or the Yoruba Empire at the center of the slaves and prisoner of war trade was ultimately the drug traffic or drug trade, the sugar based. Okay. That's where you have the drugs of the sugar, because sugar is highly addictive. And that was mostly from, the slavery and the sugar trades is what they were doing back then. And they're still doing it now. The Moors were some of the biggest slave traders, especially of so-called white people. The Moors crossbred with their servant class heavily, and to the point where the servant echelon heavily outnumbered them in certain areas. And this is where you start to get the usurping of the power. All right. So then it says those areas like Spain, where you get the conquistadors that come over here and conquered the Mexicans, right? I'm just telling you, were conceded to their servant class in 1492. And then right after that major reset of 1476, which is actually 476 because they added 1,000 years, you have the pale front runner office people who became buried in the dark masters or leadership. All right. So that's where you go. So it allows them to behave as leaders and provides cover for the actual leadership. And this is what they're doing. These pale skinned people, the billionaire class and the bureaucrats, they're still protecting the dark skinned people in their family. They know their lineage. They know it. Y'all don't know it. They know it. And that's the advantage they got because they have the upper hand. All right. So then it says a Moor named Esteban Barrantes was used by the Spanish to communicate with the Native Americans because many of the natives spoke the Shemitic or Shinoa languages. Look up the accounts of James Adair. Greek, Hebrew, and Arabic are very similar. Greek, Hebrew, and Arabic are very similar, and Gamma for Greek is, so there's a lot of overlap in the roots and communication. The Dukes of Eden still largely control the show because the Habsburgs are inbred Edomites, okay, as are the Rothschilds. Granted, they are mixed with Japheth also. The Habsburgs control the Holy Roman Empire, which consisted of the Lombards and the Genoese or Genoese families from the Columbus times. And these are some of the main funders of the colonization of America. All right. The Habsburgs ruled Spain and all its holdings in the Americas. That's why Columbus is Genoese Italian. And he came from the Americas with the Spanish Armada. They came looking for Jerusalem and the cities of gold. And if they found cities of gold, why would they tell anybody? This is another reason why people were called the Pilgrims. All right. And they were dark-skinned people. We have a picture in our head from school that they're white, but these were dark-skinned people that came here initially. All right. And so it says, by the 1600s, there was a massive influx of servant class, which is the pale-skinned people, right, in the Americas coming over from the Japheth and Edomite-controlled lands. The comet of the 1800s were also was an omen and considered to be major cause or clone wars. And there's my time. Clone Wars or Hebel. As the Anglos or the fallen Angles or fallen angels had infected the Saxons and the Scythians, they began to take over the British Isles. There was a slow creep of Western Asian genetics dominating Europe and changing the overall tone of Europe. Okay, so they got lighter and lighter. The skin of Europe began to get more migratory or mulatto looking through the leadership, which was dark, mostly like by King Charles II. The comets of the 1800s brought about war, famine, death within the leadership, etc. It was ultimately a slow motion race war through Europe for decades. Eventually, smaller resets hit the late 1600s, which sunk part of Jamaica and Panama, which is a Scottish Darien project buried in the process. The whole region was shifted, not to mention the world, but it was a smaller reset. This reset fried Northern Africa and Middle East, which is why it is mostly now desert. Okay. And this is where the Mizraim reset that pushed the eumelated populations of North Africa further into sub-Saharan Africa, the massive displacement process that ended up causing civil wars, enslavement, and losing factions. Now, Europe, as well as the whole realm, was beginning to become more and more pale. The 1700s brought about more wars, really endless wars, because we've been fighting for a very, very long time in this realm. By 1755, there was an all-out war known as the 7-Year War. Also, during the 7-Year War, a slave named Abraham knew the land better than the Anglos and the Cherokees and was used to carrier and scout because of the fact. This is also due to the fact that Cherokee are the Tsarigi or Turgi. Tsarigi is the same word as Czar or Turkey or Caesar or Khazar. All right. And if that was fast, can see the connection between those with the wording. Okay. The original Greek tribes of Cherokee, which we didn't call ourselves that, it was Anahuia, but now you're getting this lighter version in, right? So the darker skinned version was known as something else. They're whitewashing and changing the names. All right. And it says, the Cherokee were taken over by the Turkish Japetic Edomite mix. This is how we get so many pale or yellow Indian appearances for so many of the so-called Indians today. This paved the way for the Dawes Rolls and the $5 pretendians to steal the identity of the birthright, the land of the indigenous people here, the Aboriginals. Aboriginal is not a good word to use because it means to abhor the original people, to loathe or hate the original people. So I would just say indigenous, okay? This was a major period for some of the last vestiges of the dark Europe and America to revert to being shadow controllers. Ultimately, all these wars were means of cutting off communication and supplies to the original people in the area. France was one of the last places that had dark and swarthy leadership by this point. France was a cultural center of Europe, and all of English is spoken universally today. Okay, because remember again, when I told you a couple videos back, we were telepathic. We didn't speak like we're doing now. Okay. There's the fall. There's a lot of resets. There's a lot of, breaking down the genetics and the stock. Okay. So it says, then the slave classes of France and the U.S. colonies worked together to overthrow the swarthy puppet governments and slave revolts known as the revolutions. King George and Queen Charlotte were swarthy Germans ruling Britain in a time where Britain was slowly becoming taken over by the Anglos or the light-skinned people, right? Ben Franklin didn't consider Germans to be white. And this is what he says, which leads me to, and this is his quote, which leads me to add one remark that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. All Africa is black or tawny, Asia chiefly tawny, America exclusive of the newcomers, wholly, and in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally of what we call swarthy complexion, as is the Germans, also the Saxons, only excepted, who with the English make the principal body of white people of the face of the earth. I could wish their numbers were increased, and whilst we are, as I may call it, scouring our planet by clearing America of woods and of making this side of our globe reflect a brighter and light to the eyes of the inhabitants in the Mars or Venus, why should we, in the sight of the superior beings, darken its people? Why increase the sons of Africa by planting them in America, where we have to fair an opportunity by excluding all blacks and tawnies of increasing the lovely white and red mixed people? But perhaps I am partial to the complexion of my country, for such kind of partiality is natural to mankind. Ben Franklin. Swarthy means blackish. Swartz, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay. Swartz means dark or black. Ben Franklin was the major French connection and spent most of the time during the American Revolution in Paris. The American Revolution, which had been impossible without French support. The revolution was mostly a currency reset war. The colonies wanted to coin their own money, and the British conceded because it was much cheaper to remove protections for the colonies and let them govern themselves anyway. The slave revolts of the U.S. colonies and France, which is the French Revolution, changed the face of the world. The Orient Empire leadership of France had to go into the shadows and flee entirely. Napoleon stole all the artwork from the lands he conquered and brought it back to France. Many of it is still in France today. The art was whitewashed. And I told you we've had AI for a long time. All right. I'm not trying to pick a race war. I'm trying to explain to you the history that has transpired in this dome. All right. So it says the artwork was whitewashed, destroyed, or hidden, and similar to the faces of sculptures in Egypt, which were arrived later. What they cut the noses off of the people, right? And they always give you some stupid ass excuse because they were dark skinned Negroes. They were autochthonous people, right? So this last part, the U.S. Revolution led to the burning of NYC, among other cities. Go look at Jamil Shamsi-Dean's book. I've read to you both of his books. He does a great job in laying it what transpired here on the soil in America, with all the burnings, the riots, the race riots, the hangings, the killings, the court cases. It's all laid out. He's already done the work for you. Okay. Then from the burning of Detroit in 1805, virtually every major city in the U.S. was destroyed over the course of the next 100 years from fires. It was gunpowder and dynamite, and it was on purpose to erase the historical buildings that didn't fit the settlers' narratives. Okay. America was already built up, and some buildings just didn't match the Indians, who were savages' narrative. Okay. The Napoleonic Wars and the War of 1812 devastated Britain and the landscape of America. And I'm going to stop right there. And when we come back, we're going to pick it back up. I thought we'd be able to get through it a lot, but I had to stop and kind of put a commentary in there too. Let me mark this right here so I know that's where we're going to come back to. So when I come back, we still got about 10 pages maybe to finish up. I'm going to try to really just read it and get it done. But this is an excellent reference. And I mean, he has this information. You have to do your research and you have to go find it yourself. But I mean, he's laid everything out for you in a nice, neat bow. And then you can just, take your time and go through it and read it for yourself, especially in the scriptures and stuff like that. And then looking at the maps and stuff that are out there that are still existent. I know that there was a website that I was going to that had to pay to download some of the stuff, but I mean, you can still find stuff that's free out there. And especially in the Library of Congress, it's still available. You just have to set up an account. But anyway, I appreciate you guys joining me. Hey, Jamil, Radina, and whoever else came over to watch. I appreciate the support. I hope this has been beneficial. I hope it's been knowledgeable. When I come back, we're going to finish this bad boy up so we can get right on into the next transition. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. You remember what I always say. You be the change you want to see all around this Earth Dome, because it's up to you and I to make a positive change. I'll talk to you soon.